This is Troy again, as we're working with our calculators, working with engineering notation, the ability to enter values into the calculator and get the sorts of answers that we want, expressed in engineering notation, so that we have the sorts of things that we need for our electrical calculations. What we want to do in this tutorial is to look at, okay, how am I going to be putting things into the calculator so that I'm getting the sorts of answers that I want? Remember that we've got the calculator set to engineering mode. And what that means is that anything we put in, it should be giving us the answer back out with that exponent telling us what metric prefix to use. So we should have the calculator set up to do that. What we need to know is how is it that I put the information in. So I've got a couple of sample problems here that we're going to be working with. The first problem that I have here gives me 175 times 10 cubed volts, and I want to add to that 285 times 10 to the 5th volts. And so I'm needing to figure out how many volts I get when I add these together. Now I could, break this out of the scientific notation, and I say scientific because I've got an exponent that's not a multiple of 3. But I could break this out and say, well, 175 times 10 cubed, that's 175,000. The 10 cubed tells me to move the decimal point 3 places. And then I'm going to add 285 times 10 to the 5th. That's 285. Add 5 zeros to it. Come back, put some commas in here. And I could take that to the calculator, work it out, and then convert it back into engineering notation. We really don't need to do that much work because the modern calculators are set up, especially those with the engineering mode on them, to make it much, much easier for you to work with. One button that you want to be very familiar with on your calculator is the EE button. That engineering entry is what I call it. If you look up in the reference manual, it's probably something different. But it has the 2 E's on it. That's how you can enter those exponents that you need. So as I'm working with my problem here, what I'm going to do is they've got an open parentheses, 175, and then where they say times 10 to the 3rd power, I'm just going to say EE and give it the exponent 3. Then close my parentheses, plus, open parentheses, 285, and instead of times 10 to the 5th, I'll just hit the EE and that exponent 5, close parentheses, and hit equals. And when I do that, what the calculator is giving me is 28.675, and it has the E with the exponent right there, E8, which means, not E8, E6. Hard for me to see it right there. So it's telling me that this would be 28.675 times 10 to the 6th, which I can convert back into engineering notation. I know that, the metric prefix, I know that 10 to the 6th represents mega. So it's 28.675 megavolts is the answer that I'm looking for there. So instead of having to convert out into a number that doesn't use engineering notation, add them together and convert back, I was able to enter these into the calculator with the engineering notation, and it gave me an answer that has that same notation. The only thing I had to remember how to do was take 10 to the 6th power and recognize that that was mega. So very simple to do once we're comfortable with using the calculator and we understand what that EE button is for, to enter that engineering notation exponent that I need located in there. We can do the same sort of thing with this next problem that I have here. This one's dealing with resistance. I've got 754 times 10 to the negative 3rd ohms minus 3065 times 10 to the negative 6 ohms. So what I want to do is I want to simply enter this information in. Of course, ohms is the units that I'm measuring in, so that doesn't go into the calculator. But what I need to do is use the EE button to be able to enter these exponents. So we've got 754 EE negative 3. Now, one thing you do want to be careful with your calculator, anytime you have a negative value like that, don't hit the minus sign, hit the negative sign. So I will enter that as a negative 3 exponent. And now hit the minus sign because I'm subtracting. 3065, and the exponent is -6. So EE -6. And when I hit the enter, it's going to give me the result in engineering notation. It gives me 750.935, and then it gives me the e to the -3 coming out in engineering notation. So that's telling me that the result is in milliohms. That -3 exponent, going back to my chart, tells me that it's measured in milliohms. So going into the calculator, coming back out with that engineering notation result is very easy to do. Let's look at another couple of examples real quickly, and these are going to be examples that will just further the concept. We had one addition problem, we had one subtraction problem, but the exact same thing is going to be true as we start looking at multiplication and division. The first problem we have on this page, 256 times 10 squared volts times 37 times 10 to the 6th volts. Go ahead and take a second, work that out on your calculator. All we need to do is use that EE button to be able to enter the exponents. We're going to get the result back out in engineering notation when we do that. The result that you should have come up with as you did that, the calculator is giving me 947.2, and it's giving me an engineering notation of e to the 9th, and that is going to be giga. So we are looking at 947.2 gigavolts, and that is the result that we get on that one. Nothing different when we go to division. Enter the values the same way. So we have 93 to the -9th power. Divide that by 3 to the -5th power. The result that we get here, I'm going to have to move the calculator, I can't see the result. Okay, that was a -3, and so that is milliohms. 3.1 milliohms is the result that we're getting for that one. Okay, so once we understand to get the calculator in engineering mode, use that EE button to be able to input the values with the engineering mode intact. The calculator is always going to give us that result in engineering notation, and that allows us to very easily put the metric prefix that we need.